Welcome back. Arc 7 Chapter 2 has been released. I highly recommend you check my summary for Arc 7 Chapter 1 if you haven't already. Anyways, let's get started. This chapter opens up with a flashback of Beatrice telling Subaru that he's in a state of near death. This is something that Subaru thinks is a joke and he plays it off, but Beatrice is serious. We find that Beatrice is giving Subaru a lecture, but Subaru keeps interrupting her. He also states that she's incredibly cute and reminds him of a cat that you would want to hold close and rub your nose into her bare belly. Beatrice continues by stating that there's an issue with Subaru's gait. As we know, a gait is an essential organ of the body, and Subaru's gait was low quality. Furthermore, due to the overuse of using shamak, his gait was broken. Beatrice goes on to explain about mana poisoning and goes on to reiterate that since they're contracted, Beatrice will suck the mana out of Subaru and prevent Subaru from exploding. Beatrice jokes that Subaru needs to keep her in a good mood or else Subaru will die since she will refuse to take his mana. The flashback then ends. Subaru returns by death but realizes his neck hurts. This means that his return by death point is after Rem knocked him out and took Lewis. Subaru ponders upon how he died. Since he died to a bow and arrow, it's highly unlikely that it was Rem's attack, due to the type of attack that was used, on top of the fact that she would have had to somehow make a bow and arrow, and by the way, the arrow had a arrowhead and feathers as well. That's something that Rem didn't have the time to do, and we also learn that Subaru was shot through the heart. Subaru realizes that his opponent, the hunter, most likely saw Subaru as defenseless and would attack Subaru if he was located, sort of like a stealth game where Subaru has to try and make his way through the forest without being detected. Either way, Subaru presses on to find Rem and activates Corleonis. However, there is no reaction. Subaru doesn't know if that's because Rem is too far away or because Rem isn't an ally, so it doesn't pick her up on his radar. Subaru ponders about his hate for Lewis. Even if he wanted to lie to Rem and pretend to protect and like Lewis, he couldn't do that. He refused to lie to Rem. Subaru was thinking of laying low and covering himself with mud and leaves, sort of like a ghillie suit, but he didn't have the time to do that. As Subaru walked through the forest, he ended up in a separate meadow similar to the first one, and he could actually see in the distance something that looked like a camping site. Subaru comes to the conclusion that this camp belongs to the hunter that killed him. There was no way the hunter mistook Subaru for a wild animal, so the hunter purposefully killed Subaru. But regardless, Subaru wanted a knife from the camp. After all, when navigating a forest, a good knife will be able to cut away the thick vines and leaves. As Subaru makes his way to the camp, he notices it has a bed and a place to start fire. Someone was here recently. Regardless, he presses on and states aloud that he needs a knife. And he gets a response. "Oh, you want a blade? Then you came to the right place at the right time." Subaru realized that he had a knife placed at his neck. The unknown person told Subaru to be careful. Any actions or things he say could lead to him being killed. The man continues to talk, saying something interesting. Now keep in mind this is a rough translation, but this unknown person critiques Subaru's clothes, saying that it isn't suitable for Badheim, which seems to be where Subaru's at. So I've never heard of this Badheim location, and of course it's a rough translation, so do keep that in mind. Subaru tries to talk to the unknown person, but this person tells him to shut up and be quiet. Subaru says that he has to defend himself and he can't do that if he can't talk, and the unknown person actually agrees and tells Subaru to turn around slowly. Subaru turns around and the man is dressed like a noble, but he has a weird rag around his head, obscuring his face. He's also either Subaru's age or slightly older, and he's also thin. Subaru comments that he doesn't look like an assassin, and the man responds that he's more like a defender. Subaru asked if this person could turn invisible or teleport, and the other man wondered how he came to that conclusion. Subaru understood it since he was friends with people like Reinhard, Wilhelm, and Garfiel. These people were superhuman, so it would be possible for them to move at super speed. However, this man that Subaru had met at the camp was easily inferior to all of them. The man disappears in front of Subaru's eyes, but he's actually still there, invisible, which is something he can do when he holds his breath. He goes on to explain that the camp Subaru found was a decoy camp. He was actually located further away, watching Subaru in the forest whilst holding his breath. He goes on to conclude that Subaru is not a pursuer, he's rather a wanderer, and he lowers his knife, realizing that Subaru is not an enemy. Subaru asks if the man has seen Rem, a girl with blue hair, but the man says no, but he is willing to help and cooperate with Subaru. Subaru then goes on to explain the situation about how he got separated from Rem, and the man just said Subaru did a really poor job. Furthermore, the hunter drops some really interesting information. He states that this Rem person has lost her memory, but she's still smart and can think for herself, and that Subaru made a fatal error. If you're being pursued, you will definitely set up traps to distract any people chasing you and throw them off the trail. Similar to how the man has a decoy camp, his real one is further away. Rem knew Subaru would be chasing her, and as soon as he woke up, he located a trail and chased it, believing that Rem was going in that direction. However, again, Rem could have predicted that and decided to set up a decoy trail for Subaru to chase after, and then she could have went in the opposite direction, so reverse psychology in a way. Subaru realizes this, realizing that the trail that Rem left disappeared the second it got into the entrance of the forest. The man continues to analyze the situation, explaining that the trail Subaru saw was a fake and that Rem most likely went in the opposite direction, and she did this to trick Subaru. Subaru thanks the man and goes on his way. The man, however, stops him and gives him a knife. Subaru thanks him again and says that he doesn't have anything to give in return, but the man says that is fine. Subaru then states his name, being Natsuki Subaru, and that he will repay the favor in the future and he will not forget this debt. Subaru warns the man about the hunter, and then he makes his way back to the first meadow easily. Subaru then goes into the opposite direction of the meadow and he found a strange trail, most likely due to Lewis. This confirms that the initial trail was a decoy one. Subaru was finally making progress and pressed forwards. All of a sudden, as he entered the forest, his body was blown away and Subaru was launched onto the floor. Subaru got up injured and he realized he triggered a vine which released a tree branch which hit Subaru away. This was something made by Rem to deter Subaru from following. Subaru realizes something as he gets up. This is the second time since Subaru arrived in this rezero world that he's having a serious battle with Rem. That's the end of the chapter. Let me know what you think, and thank you to Nutrags for being a channel member, and I'll see you guys next time.